second episode of our Bedford County Public Schools update during the coronavirus. I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in last week for our first episode, and also welcome people who may have not been able to join us last week. Today, we're going to feature the class of 2020, the seniors, in our episode. And this morning, I had the opportunity to invite the three class presidents from our high schools, as well as the three high school principals, to a Zoom session, really a conversation about how the coronavirus has impacted the class of 2020. Let's watch. At this time, I'd like to introduce six very special guests. From Stanton River High School, we have class president Julianne Hughes and principal Josh Cornett. From Liberty High School, senior class president Riley Taylor and principal Sean Trosper. And from Jefferson Forest High School, senior class president Anthony Garcia and principal Brian Wilson. I'd like to thank all six of you for joining us today to talk about how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the class of 2020. And I'd like to immediately go to probably the three guests that most of you have tuned in to hear from, and that's our three class presidents. Now, let me kind of set this up because this may seem like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. On the afternoon of March 13th, Governor Northam made an announcement to close all of the schools in Virginia for 2 weeks. That announcement came unexpected to most of us, myself included, and may I think all of us take the pandemic a little bit more seriously than maybe we had up to that point. And then it was not too much longer, on the afternoon of March 23rd, that his announcement came about canceling the entire school year. So I'd like to start with our class presidents, and why don't we start with you, Julianne? If you could just tell me when you heard that the school year was closed and what was running through your mind when you heard that announcement.
But when I first heard that it was closed for 2 weeks, I was like, yay, I get a break. Like, at least, like, something good's coming out of this. I was like, okay, like, don't have to homework for 2 weeks. But then later, when hearing that our entire school year was canceled, I was actually, like, quite sad. And I'm not a very sentimental person by, like, any means. But hearing that, like, I would never be able to say, like, goodbye to my teachers or, like, bye to, like, acquaintances or, like, people I really wasn't going to stay in touch with after high school. But, like, you still want to, like, end that chapter was really sad for me. So knowing that it was like a temporary break was like, cool, I don't have school for a little bit. But like knowing that it was completely finalized and that last day that we were told that we would have 2 weeks off of school was my last day in high school. Like that was the last time I would walk through the halls or like go to my car after school. Like it was done. And that was really sad for me because it was like, you want to expect like an end to something because that's like a really big chapter of our lives. You know, we've been K through 12 our entire lives, and now it's like a whole new chapter, and we didn't get that like moment to be like, it's done. And so I think I was really just sad. That's how I felt ending that part.
Okay. Anthony, why don't you chime in about what was going through your mind when you heard the announcement?
Well, when I first heard the 2 week announcement, I was happy just like Julianne. And then when the second came out, I was watching TV and I saw the press conference on it, and it didn't really sink in right away. I saw the posts on social media. Everybody weren't too happy about it. And then about 3 days later, it really sunk in. I was like, 2 weeks ago, that was really my last day of school. And I think I'm still processing the whole thing. Deep inside of me, I still have like hope for graduation or like another class, but it most likely won't happen, which stinks. But as long as everybody stays safe, that's the real goal in mind.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, Riley, what was going through your mind when you heard that the school year was canceled?
I think just as they said, you know, we were initially really happy to have a 2 week break. Our senior year for a lot of people was very difficult and rigorous. It can be really stressful at times. So getting that 2 week break was really nice. But then when Governor Northam made the second announcement, my jaw honestly dropped. You know, I've never heard of anything like this happening. You know, we got out of school 2 months early, which is nice, but it was really bittersweet to know that a lot of the memories that we hadn't made yet my senior prom that I'd already gotten my dress for, my senior graduation, everything just kind of got taken away from us, and it really it was hurtful.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask the same question to our 3 high school principals, and why don't we start with Sean Trosper from Liberty High School. What was going through your mind as a principal when you heard that the school year had been canceled?
Yeah, Dr. Shook, that first announcement was just surreal for me. I was in a meeting and my secretary popped in and shared that school had been closed for 2 weeks. And of course, I went into planning mode and who do we communicate with and how do we do that? But when it came to the announcement about the end of the school year, that was just a really different feeling. Schools are meant to have students and we're meant to think about how to help them every day. And there's so many opportunities. So after I kind of got through and processed the news, I think my next thought was I was just sad. I was sad for the seniors and a lot of these big life events that we all remember from our experiences like prom and graduation, and just that last quarter is just a fun time for those seniors. So I felt bad for them and I started thinking about ways that we could try to connect with them and encourage them. And Dr. Shook, the other ones that I really thought about too are some of those students that struggle where school is their safe place. And I thought, how can we support those students and those that are home and maybe things aren't so good. And so that was something that I've started planning with my team is just how can we make sure students are that they know they're still part of the Liberty family. And that's an ongoing discussion.
Thank you. So maybe taking this in a slightly different direction, we've got Josh Cornett, the principal of Stanton River High School with us. And, you know, you've heard each of these folks talk about proms and graduations and events for the class of 2020. What are your thoughts about those events coming up? We have a graduation technically scheduled for May 30th. We haven't canceled that yet, but realistically, we know that may not happen. What kind of things are you hearing from the students at Stanton River or even from your own staff about those events and what it might look like moving forward?
Well, like many have already echoed, I think the first and foremost thing is safety, however we do anything. But as we continue to get information and guidance from the state and local levels, I think it's important to see what we're able to do and then based on that, be innovative as much as possible. I've heard a lot of different ideas on how discussions are going with graduation ceremonies, from pushing the date back until we're able to have that, or some are discussing maybe like drive-by ceremonies, being innovative where students might drive in a car and receive a diploma that way. So I think, you know, as we move forward with this, we see what we're able to do and have that discussion. What is best for our students, what is best for our community as a division, and try to be innovative.
Thank you. So, Brian Wilson, principal at Jefferson Forest High School, you're the last one to come into this conversation, and you've heard these 5 folks talk about, you know, their reactions to the school closure and also some thoughts about graduations and maybe other events. What are you hearing in your community about community sentiments around maybe these events for the seniors? And also any thoughts or suggestions you've heard from your community?
I think we have a very optimistic community. I think there's still a lot of hope alive. People are still penciling in graduation and looking for prom dates in June. And so I think, you know, a lot of folks are really hoping that the worst will pass and that some of these things can still happen in some capacity. With the realistic view of there may be some virtual opportunities and some ways we can still celebrate these people. These individuals, even if it's not in person, even if it's not a large gathering, we're still looking for ways, like Dr. Cornett expressed, to do things safely, to still celebrate them. And also looking at post-secondary and some of the things they're doing for graduations and how can we do it maybe even next fall for celebrating people at homecomings. And, you know, so there's a variety of things looking down the road. But I think the overall is, you know, I think everybody's looking that this will pass and there'll be a brighter day and there'll be another time where we can do it. So a very opportunistic, very optimistic kind of sense right now from our people, and they're just looking to see what comes next.
Okay, so for the senior class presidents, you know, one of the opportunities that you may or may not have is to address your classmates at a formal graduation ceremony. And again, hopefully that will happen fashion as the principals have said they'd like to see happen. But in 30 seconds or less, if you could, why don't each of you, if you've got any words to share with your classmates at this difficult time, what would you like them to hear from you as president of their senior class? And why don't we start with Riley this time?
If I could speak to my senior class right now, the first thing I would do is apologize. I'm so sorry to all of you guys that part of our senior year got taken away from us. Our prom, our graduation may be taken away from us. Spring sports athletes, I play softball. My whole senior softball season was taken away. And I'm just sorry that all of these important things were taken away, but I hope that all of you guys are staying optimistic. I hope that you are staying hopeful. Please know that everybody in the community is behind you, and we are doing our best to give everybody, everything we deserve and everything that we missed. And I hope that you guys are staying quarantined, staying inside, and washing your hands.
And Riley, I really appreciate your honesty and transparency there. I mean, I know how important softball is to you, being a state champion from last year. And I think it really speaks to not just for the seniors, but for so many of our young folks, things beyond even regular school have been taken from them. And I share your sentiments. Let's go back to Anthony now. Anthony, anything to share with your classmates at JF?
If any of my classmates at JF are hearing this, I first want to thank you for electing me to be in this position to represent you guys. I'm truly thankful for that. I also want to say you can always improve yourself at home, even if you don't have any scheduled classes. And I'd also want to say, please stay inside. Please don't put yourself at risk to get this disease. And just thank you.
Okay. And last but not least, Julianne, anything for the Golden Eagles?
I just want them to know that it may be terrible that we don't get a senior prom. That probably won't happen. We may not get the normal graduation, but we will have a really cool story to tell later on that something really happened to us, and we can tell our kids it, and we can laugh about it later. So even though that this is a serious thing, we kind of have the best of it. We're not living in areas that people are dying, and most of us probably don't know many people who are dying from this pandemic. But we do have a really cool story to tell, and something that's different that our parents didn't get for prom and graduation. And just to be optimistic like that and keep yourself safe and realize that we've got it pretty good compared to some other people.
Thank you, Julianne. And really thank you to all 6 of you. These are difficult times. These are unprecedented times. And each of you in your own way, I think, has conveyed your own feelings, but also, I think, given hope. And hopefully our listeners and those that are watching out there will appreciate that. You all, whether you realize it or not, you are the anchors of your community as class presidents, as high school principals. Your entire communities look to the 6 of you for leadership in these times. And I just want to thank you for your leadership in these times and ask you to stay in touch with your school, with your class officers, with your administration, with your faculty, for updates on what may come next. Again, we don't have any answers about exactly how we're going to do graduation or maybe other celebrations, but I can tell you that people like this, these 6 are thinking through all these ideas, and they probably want suggestions from you. So please reach out and share those suggestions. Well, I hope you enjoyed that segment as much as I did. I really want to thank Riley and Julianne and Anthony for spending that time with us earlier today, and also to their principals, Dr. Trosper, Dr. Cornett, and Mr. Wilson. We are in such great shape with leaders like that in our community. I also want to give you a few reminders about some upcoming things. Next week, believe it or not, is the spring break for Bedford County Public Schools. And even though spring break may seem like a silly concept amidst everything that's happening, we do want to honor that for our teachers and other employees. So you may not be hearing as much from teachers or at all during spring break week, and we ask you to honor that and expect all of the continuity of learning to continue the week after spring break. However, I do want to let you know that we are going to continue our meal distribution during spring break because we just think that's such an important thing to do for the families that need that service. I'd also remind you that our school board meeting is coming up tonight It'll be aired on YouTube Live at 5 p.m. Please tune in to see a more detailed coronavirus update and other topics that our board and staff will be discussing. I'd also like to remind you that tomorrow, Mr. Robert Hiss, the county administrator, will give his update. And so I encourage you to tune in and listen to things that are happening from our county government. Last, I'd like to invite you all to tune in next Thursday at 3 p.m. That's April 16th. The topic of conversation there is going to be the meal distribution. We're going to talk to folks that are involved with that operation, and I think you'll be interested in hearing all that goes into doing that major service for our community. Thanks again for tuning in, and please stay safe.